Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I will very briefly take you through what happened with the Canadian boat to Gaza, a part of the Freedom Flotilla in Greece in the summer of 2011. It was made clear that the enemy, actually it was known, but it was made very obvious that the enemy is not simply Israel only, but also the governments that collaborate with Israel and do its dirty work. And that is what happened in Greece in the summer of last year, when the Greek government accepted to do Israel's blockade and extend it to the shores of Greece. And following that, the second effort that boats from the Freedom Flotilla that could not sail in the summer due to the Greek government acceptance of playing that dirty role. Two of those boats left from Turkey, and one of them was the Canadian boat to Gaza. And without doing a lot of public work, we managed to leave from Turkey till we were intercepted in international waters by the Israeli Navy illegally. And we were, the boat was captured and we were detained for 6 days and then deported to our respective countries. But that also made it very clear how the Canadian government was from the very beginning a strong supporter of Israel, which is nothing new. I mean, we all know this conservative government, how it is totally standing, as our foreign minister said it when he was in Israel just a few weeks ago, when he said that Canada does not stand behind Israel. And then he stood there for a moment of silence for theatrical effect, and then he continued, Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel. So Canada, our government is responsible as much as Israel is for any atrocities that Israel commits. From the very beginning of the work for the Canadian boat to Gaza, and that's taking us 1 year before to the summer of 2010, we were visited by CSIS, who tried to intimidate us and tried to scare us away, which we totally refused, and we continued our work. When we came back from detention and our boat that is bought by the Canadian money, that is supported by thousands of Canadian citizens and civil society organizations, the Canadian Foreign Affairs refused to give us any help in retrieving the boat and the medical aid that was on the boat. And I quote here from an email after a long trail of back and forth emails with the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister representative. The Department of Foreign Affairs will not be taking steps to secure the delivery of the boat along with its cargo, as this is a private matter. That has happened at the same time or days before Minister Byrd's episode in Israel that I just told you about. And then a few days later, we hear about a law that is proposed, Bill S7, that is proposed in the Canadian Senate. And it states, other crimes that would fall under the law include leaving Canada to commit an offense for the benefit of a terrorist group. Some people read this as explicitly tailored for us who try to support the Palestinian civil society and Palestinian rights, because in Canada's eyes, it is an illegal act to challenge Israel's blockade that they fully support, and we are leaving the country to challenge that. So we are exactly aiding a terrorist organization, as they like to always frame the work that is done for Gaza as if it's all done for the government, the ruling government of Gaza, which again, nobody can deny or dispute that it is the democratically elected government of Palestine as a whole. So our work as Canadian boat to Gaza at this point takes really two parallel paths. One of those two paths is to continue to challenge the Canadian government and challenge its shameful positions in support of Israel. We have launched a petition to demand that Prime Minister Harper put some pressure on his guest Netanyahu, who was with him till yesterday in Ottawa, to ask for the return of this Canadian property. Of course, to no avail, but that is no reason for us to stop pushing and stop putting pressure. And at the same time, to work with all other groups in Canada that are working against this undemocratically ruling party in Canada, because they are supported by under 40% of the population. They are a minority government, in fact, yet ruling us as a majority. So we have a lot of work in our hands here, not only related to the Canadian boat or to Palestine, but related to our own well-being and our own future livelihood in this country as free and righteous people. On the other hand, our work with the Freedom Flotilla, with the international partners, is taking a new dimension at this point, as we are trying to find new ways to break and to challenge and break the Israeli blockade of Gaza. And this time, we are starting our work from inside Gaza, where international groups are going to finance and oversee the building of Gaza's Ark, a boat that is going to be built inside Gaza to carry Gazan produce, however little it is, however commercially cheap or small it is, to carry it outside, breaking the blockade from the inside out, and thus disarming Israel's arguments that they are afraid of what's coming into Gaza. What are they going to say this time? They're afraid that Hamas is going to export nuclear arms to Iran? It is an ingenious idea that the international community is working on at this point. And with the few minutes I had, I hope you got a picture of the work we are doing, a work that has been going on now for about 2 years and is going to continue in the future, not only till the blockade is lifted, but till all justice returns to Palestine, all of the Palestinian people. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite Stefan Christophe up to talk about Israeli Apartheid Week, which this event is part of.
Thanks, Ezra. It's great to see so many people out on the opening night of Israeli Apartheid Week. I want everybody to put your hands together for everybody who came out and for the whole Palestine solidarity movement, which is growing across the world. It's really exciting to see everybody here. Thank you to Cinema Politica for opening up the week this year in 2010. Just a few things. The Apartheid Week is a global movement. It's not something that's happening just here in Montreal, but it's something that's happening across the world. So from Johannesburg to London, England, to occupied Palestine, students and community organizations are holding Israeli Apartheid Week. So it's really incredible to see the growth and the expansion of this process. Visit apartheidweek.org just to check it out yourself. So this is another year here in Montreal, and we have an incredible week of events coming up. Tonight we'll be seeing Tears of Gaza. Of course, this is inspired by what is actually going on in Palestine today. As Ihab mentioned, people in the Gaza Strip are struggling to survive on a daily basis. Across the West Bank, popular demonstrations against the Israeli apartheid wall continue every week in villages like Nelin or Bilin. Many villages across the West Bank continue to protest apartheid, to protest occupation. That's really what is leading this global movement in solidarity with Palestine, is the grassroots resistance on the ground of Palestinians who are fighting against such incredible odds, but who are fighting and are winning small victories, and are continuing to hold demonstrations, are engaging in the international movement for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the Israeli government. And so it's really important to take into consideration that Israeli Apartheid Week is part of a global movement which is called the Bds Movement, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. It's a movement that is starting to have effect. It's a movement that is starting to impact the Israeli state. Increasingly, government officials are running scared, making statements, trying to denounce the BDS movement. But in reality, we know that it's starting to have a political momentum. We can see by the high-profile artists who are now refusing to play in apartheid Israel. Only recently, we saw Cat Power canceling her concert. We've seen great artists like Gil Scott-Heron refusing to play in apartheid Israel. So it's really a global movement. We're seeing major labor unions here in Quebec, the national trade unions of this province, representing tens of thousands of workers, joining, voting to support the boycott movement. And very tangibly, what that means within a trade union is that the investments for the workers' retirement funds are slowly being altered so that there's no investment in Israeli-based companies or companies that support Israeli apartheid. So we're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that we're seeing move away from Israeli apartheid. That's a very tangible victory. Across Canada, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers is a key supporter of the BDS movement. So it's really exciting time. Obviously, there's a lot of work to still do, but there is momentum. And I think we can see by the breadth of events taking place this week as part of Israeli Apartheid Week that there is momentum, and we are moving forward. So the last thing I'd say is that one of the other supporters of the BDS movement, of course, is l'Association pour une solidarité syndicale étudiante, ASSE. Who knows ASSE in the house? Okay. Well, basically, this is the organization that's leading the student strike. So ASSE has also been very, very involved in supporting the BDS movement. The organization that is bringing thousands of people onto the streets actually was the first student union in all of North America to endorse the BDS campaign, and that was in 2008. So it's important to remind people of that when you see the student protests. So that's it. And I would say that we live in Canada, we live in Quebec, so we live in a country that is also occupied. We live in a country that has a colonial history. We live in a country where apartheid policies exist. Look at communities like Apawapiskat. Look at communities like Ganasatagi in 1990, where Mohawks fought for their land against the Canadian Army. We have our own apartheid within Canada. We have our own struggles for self-determination within Canada, led by Indigenous people. So we must remember, as we stand in solidarity with Palestine, that we also stand in solidarity for the struggles of self-determination and for social justice of First Nations communities across this country who continue to live in conditions that are horrific, impoverished, and oppressive. So we must support the struggles of First Nations communities also. That's it. A lot of words, but I just want to say, if you want to get involved in these struggles, we're all part of a larger movement for social justice. So when we stand for justice in Palestine, we stand for justice everywhere in Montreal and all around the world. What we're going to see tonight is a very intense film, as Ezra mentioned, Tears of Gaza. And it actually shows the reality of what went down when Israel launched Operation Cast Lead on the Palestinian people in Gaza. Before that, we wanted to show you an example of a Palestinian artist who's inspiring, who's incredible, and who gives voice to the resistance, named Shadia Mansour. So we're going to be showing her video, Al-Kufia Arabiya, first. So thank you to everybody for coming out. Please put your hands together for the dozens of people who made Israeli Apartheid Week happen, all the grassroots organizers, and to Cinema Politica. Thank you and enjoy the screenings.